All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to our work session tonight, and if you would take a chance, take a moment to look at the agenda for Monday night's meeting. If you have any questions or concerns, let me know or Ms. Brooke know, and we will continue on and turn it over to our leadership.
Yes, sir. We have not many items on the agenda, but things we think the board needs an update on, and then I do have Mr. Francis, I think, 3 updates for closed session.
Okay.
So with that, you will talk to them about your items.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I just wanted to cover real quickly, we will be moving into our new central office space. We will begin that move May 10th through the 18th. Individuals will be able to go when they are ready to go, as their office is outfitted with furniture. So it'll be on an individual basis, with a final move day of May 19th, with maintenance on hand for those items that are too large or too heavy or too many for an individual to move themselves. The building's wired and ready to go, so just the minute they sit down in their chair, their computer will connect to Wi-Fi, their phones will ring there as well, and they can call out. There'll be just a little bit of confusion between physical location. You'll be calling the same number, but it may be at Central Elementary or it may be at 1233 North Main Street. So, but we anticipate completing that move. Finance, obviously, they've elected to move later. They will be moving June 1st and 2nd. That's payroll and finance, simply because they want to get payroll complete. They don't want to be transitioning while trying to complete payroll and end of the month items. And then Teresa Cook will move after testing is complete. So that's an update on the new central office. We will certainly plan an open house at some point in the future, once we get all the bugs worked out and people settled into their new space. We certainly want to have everyone in and see the new facility. We're very grateful to have that. I know, Mr. Chairman, you in particular have grappled with the issue of, and Mr. Rogers, for a long time, where and who and at what point in time will there be a new central office? So I know you'll be glad to finally lay that to rest. So we're tickled about that. Might there be any questions on the new central office and the move?
That's just a piece of that puzzle. By the way, there's more coming.
Yes.
A lot more needs. But yes, very grateful, and it looks great from the outside. Drove around it, it really looks very nice.
I think it did well. I can take no credit for that. FA Architects, I think, did a great job. John Bergen has done a good job in executing those architectural plans. Our central office staff have picked out colors throughout the way, furniture styles, types, flooring. So they've had input along the way, and they've done a good job as well. We're pleased. Any other further questions?
Great news.
All right. With that, I will move to a couple of moves. I talked to you earlier about Central Haywood High School occupying Central Elementary, or at least a portion of that building. They will literally, if you're standing facing what would be the front of the school or Joy Lane, with the road to your back and you're facing the building, the left-hand side from the main entry doors will be Central Haywood High School space, to include the cafeteria and gymnasium. Looking at from the main doors to the right-hand side of the main building will be occupied by our ITC. They're going to get to expand just a little bit. They need the space. So you'll have Central Haywood on the left-hand side of the building, and you'll have ITC on the right-hand side of the building occupying Central Elementary. Again, with Central Haywood having use of the cafeteria and the gymnasium, which they need. In addition to that, earlier we talked about not investing money in the way of a rooftop unit at the old daycare center, the kindergarten building at the old Hazelwood School. It has many names. And probably the easiest way to define its current use is EC itinerant staff. They occupy that building now. And we had elected not to replace that HVAC unit because the goal would be to surplus or abandon that facility just for upkeep and the heating and cooling and maintenance that goes on with it. However, the flood changed lots of things, as did ESSER funds. With ESSER funds, we have available to us federal funds that does not impact our capital reserve budget. It does not impact our state tax dollar income that we have. It does not impact our lottery. It's money that we would not ordinarily have. And we thought, and those ESSER funds are authorized for air quality improvements, or HVAC. And so since it's not an impact to our normal budget, we thought we would utilize using ESSER funds and purchase an HVAC unit for the EC itinerant building. Again, the Hazelwood daycare, Hazelwood kindergarten building. And so those folks will be able to stay in place and continue to use that building, and we will replace the HVAC unit using ESSER funds with no impact to our normal budget. But that did give us an opportunity. You know, we recently renovated the kindergarten building at Central Elementary. And our HCLC currently occupies the very end of the old Hazelwood School. And so those folks will be moving to the newly renovated kindergarten building on Central Elementary's campus. And it makes a lot of sense. Their diploma comes from Central Haywood. They share a lot of services. It gives us a principal and a program director who work hand in hand with those students. It makes sense for them to occupy the same campus. And so, and they'll be moving, that's an upgrade for them as well, because the old portion of Hazelwood Elementary that they're using, the old Hazelwood Elementary School portion they're using, is tight, it's constrained, it requires a lot of maintenance, it needs many upgrades, and so they will get a much better space in the process. Just so you know, these decisions are not made independently. It was discussed in Building and Grounds. It was discussed with the program director for HCLC. It was discussed with the principal at Central Haywood High School. I've talked with the staff at Central Haywood High School, and I've talked with Brandy Stevenson, who oversees the EC itinerant staff that currently occupy the EC itinerant building at Old Hazelwood School. So lots of parties, they looked at it, they talked about it, they considered all the spaces that were on the table, and all parties seem to feel like they would benefit from the moves that we're making. So I know that's kind of convoluted. There are a lot of moves, but just to recap as simply as I can, HCLC students and staff will occupy the newly renovated kindergarten building on Central Elementary's campus. Central Haywood High School will occupy a half of the Central Elementary School. And that removes them from the upstairs of the A building at Waynesville Middle and allows all students to be in person every day and have a gym and have a cafeteria. Then obviously we're moving out to the new central office. So, any questions on that?
Now, the unit at the old Hazelwood, so who's going to be occupying that building?
EC itinerant staff, they'll stay put. They're there now, and we were going to move them to the newly renovated kindergarten building on Central Elementary's campus. That's where we had intended to move them so that we could vacate that campus. But with flooding and continued need or use for occupying Central Elementary, it made more sense with available ESSER funds to go ahead and replace that HVAC unit
And
where
leave 'em
they're
down
at
there.
and leave them
So-
there.
How about future, are we still looking down the future of moving them and putting them all together?
Yes.
Because I think that was the reason. Now, obviously, I know there's been a lot of talk, but that was one of the reasons why we did not want to put money into it, is because we was planning on floods still come. But would we still not have room at Central Elementary to move everybody, or is that where IT stand? Then the students, okay, so that's where, so pretty much the floods throw the IT in there, and that's where the extra rooms that we was thinking what we had is gone now.
Right.
Okay, that makes more sense. I just had to play that out in my head.
Well, and we don't want anyone to think these are permanent homes. Some of them may become permanent, but it's important to point out this is an interim plan that gives everyone suitable space so that they can continue about their school year in a good environment.
And then an uninterrupted environment, and this is still up in the air over here. So,
That's correct. Central
got a
Haywood High
facility here
School.
waiting.
That's correct. It's still, we're working through the process with FEMA for those that have interacted and worked through the FEMA process and the many requirements they have. It is a lengthy process.
That was kind of going to be my question, is what's the future for this building? And I guess Pee Wee asked part of it is, there's no way we can put everybody in that one place and get rid of that Hazelwood altogether at this point.
There's not. We have so there's 8 classrooms and 16 people in the kindergarten building at the old Hazelwood Elementary School campus that will be using that daycare building or kindergarten building there. This board came up with what I felt to be a good and solid plan to consolidate as much as we can, so we weren't trying to maintain heat, cool, mow around old buildings that had lost their usefulness, for lack of better words. That is always the goal in mind. The flood certainly created a kink in that. Funding certainly created a kink in that. But we continue to consolidate where we can and surplus properties where we can. We would not have invested any money in that campus were it not for ESSER funds that are available. If it were going to impact our normal budget, our normal state tax dollars and lottery, I think that would probably be a poor idea, because that's money invested in a property we hope to surplus. But The ESSER funds, we wouldn't normally have those, and they don't impact our normal budgets.
I have a question, dealing with the ESSER funds. Is it just for replacement of existing units on the HVAC?
That's correct.
Like our gyms that need HVAC, like Waynesville Middle, there's nothing there to, because I'd rather spend that money putting something at Waynesville Middle than putting it on a building that we're gonna surplus someday.
Yeah, you'll have an item for discussion and consideration on Monday, and that is Waynesville Middle. All of our schools, well, I won't say all of our schools, we've worked through some of them replacing their units. We shifted money from what would have been spent in capital, or shifted items, I think is a better way to say it, where we budgeted barred units. We didn't buy them out of the capital money, because what we don't spend of that reverts back up to the county and is held there. And so anywhere we can utilize these ESSER funds for air quality improvements or HVAC, we're spending that money on that. And there's just a multitude of, just a refresher, I think I told y'all this before. All the HVAC we have throughout the school system was put in pretty much at the same time via a grant. And grants are great, but they require you to spend them pretty quickly all at one time. And what that results in is all of our HVAC aging out at the same time. And so over the past few years, we've actually budgeted for HVAC in the capital budget, and incrementally we are replacing schools' HVAC out as we move through. And as we do so, we're seeking better ways. The barred units are not ideal for heating and cooling. They're not particularly designed for this area. Their efficiency and effectiveness is for 32 degrees, where a cold would be 32 degrees. And as y'all well know, we reach temperatures well below that. And a lot of the units burn up at that point or fail to work. And so when and where we can move away from the barred units, we try to find a more effective, a better energy rated, and HVAC that's designed for our geographic area when possible. Sometimes it's simply not possible.
What about like mini splits? So we looked into doing some mini splits and some.
We're doing a mini split system at Tuscola E building, where it has a main unit and then mini splits coming off of it. So sometimes that application works. We just depending on whether we're able to run duct work or retrofit, that really determines the kind of unit that we have available to us.
All right, thank you, sir.
I think I'd just add, we're doing a ESSER update. We said we do those every few months. We have one scheduled for Finance Committee meeting on Monday, and Taylor's bringing that information. And I think when you see that, you'll see that we've probably spent $5 million or close to it in ESSER, but we still have 70-some-odd% of that money left. Now, it has to last for 2 more years in summer schools and transitioning extra personnel that we hired during COVID. And I'm quite confident that the one unit at the old daycare will not impact what we can do with HVAC in other areas. That'd just be one unit.
So just clarify,
Okay.
right now, we're still waiting to find out, are we gonna do something with this building over here, or are we gonna take that money and put it in a building somewhere else, or
So what FEMA does is they look at the amount of available insurance money you have. One of the things all of you have already voted on was doing an architectural design or build or plan to evaluate what would a set of plans, what would be the proposed cost to put this building right here back just the way it was. And once that work is complete, you put it in front of FEMA and they go, okay, so, and I'm going to use an arbitrary number for those listening. This is surely an arbitrary number just for talking points. Let's say that the repairs are 15 million to put it back just like it was. They then want you to evaluate the building for mitigative measures. They say, okay, well, we want you to watertight the doors, waterproof the windows. We want you to raise utilities above the floodplain, and that's going to cost another 15 million. And they say, okay, that's $30 million to not only put it back like it was, but to implement mitigative measures that will be a cost savings in the future when or if another flood comes. They then compare that with a new build out of the floodplain and do a cost benefits analysis to see if it's money well spent to relocate versus making it better where it's at. And so that's the process we're in right now. And we simply don't know the answer to that. That answer will come from FEMA. What I can tell you is the whole reason we sought relocation was federal and state agencies that were walking through the building with us advised us to seek relocation given the proximity to the river and the amount of damage that's incurred every time a flood occurs. So we took them at their advice, and that's what we've pursued to this point. And so we're in a cost benefits analysis at this time.
I would say, and this is one of the first things I said after the flood, because I remembered, like many of you who lived through it last time, this is a long process and the bureaucracy has just gotten worse. And I probably shouldn't do this, but y'all know I speak my mind and sometimes it gets me in trouble. Not as much with you folks as the general public, but sometimes even with you folks. I can probably speak for others, we're really frustrated because we feel like since September, we have done everything that we have been asked to do in terms of not moving things until FEMA looked at it and gave us permission to, in terms of getting estimates and surveys and all the kinds of numbers that Dr. Putnam just described. And we have provided those to FEMA and other folks who need them, and we're waiting. And it is frustrating because in the old days when we didn't have any or as many rules, we would have fixed this. But the problem is, if we don't wait, then we don't have the money to fix it on our own. So we're frustrated. If you're listening to a recording of this and you can talk to FEMA without making them angry, if you got a good friend in FEMA, tell them to just please look at ours as quickly as they can. I think we would like to move this building. I don't think we want to move a memorial field by any means, but on those projects and some of the others, we're waiting. I'm sorry. I don't want to speak for you, but that's a frustration I've heard from you and others, and certainly that I have.
Yeah, and I think it's important too to understand, and I spoke to this at the commissioners meeting. It's important to understand the difference between 2004 and 2021 floods. In 2004, Josh and myself have done a good bit of research, but Jack Horton, the county manager at that time, wrote a grant. And those grant funds spent a lot more readily and easily than do federal funds. There was also a Western North Carolina flood bill that came out that year. and there were state funds allocated for repair and recovery of the flooding, both of which we do not have in 2021. And I have, with your permission and your approval, organized lots of projects in the millions of dollars and sent those projects to DPI for review. And I've been told to reevaluate the project and add fire alarm or sprinkler systems or ADA access or other adjustments to the plans. But the one thing I've never been asked for in spending state dollars is a permit. Nor have I had to comply with any federal regulations. And so though that is a big difference between the flooding in 2004 and 2021. State funds and grant funds spend a whole lot more readily and easily than federal funds, even procuring them, even having access to funds so that you can begin work. It is more difficult. And so it is a very tedious, slow process in trying to procure those federal funds because, quite honestly, the funds we have available to us are not sufficient. We couldn't even complete half the fields with the money we have available, even if we decided to go it our own. We couldn't even complete half the restoration on half the fields. So it's critical that we obtain these federal funds or there will be no restoration at all. FEMA continues to reassure us that if we walk the pace that they're asking us to walk and comply, they will fund the projects. That said, if I'll echo something Dr. Nolte said and make a plea. If anybody knows where there's a large grab on lots of money, call me.
Any other questions? Thanks for the lot of detail. And for those of us that are not at every Building and Grounds Committee meeting, I know it sounds redundant, but it helps us to grasp it in our heads what's going on, and I appreciate the detail.
One thing, Mr. Chairman, that I would like to say thanks for is I kind of think we've been discussing this for over 10 years about the HCLC and Central Haywood High School being put in the same vicinity building. So I'm thankful for that finally happening. I really think it's a very good move because, like I say, there's a lot of commonalities between the two groups. So I think it'll work real well that way.
Yep. Very good.
It does help us with the public because you get, I don't know how many questions. It's like the football field. Everybody's, are we going to get to play football? And that's, we're working on it, And
That would be an honest and fair response, which is it's federal funds as opposed to grant or state funds. And they're, anyone who's dealt with the federal government, and I'm not disparaging the federal government, I'm simply saying there are a lot more stringent rules and regulations associated with any funding that you receive from the federal government.
Very good. You want to move on to the next section?
Yes, yes, sir, and certainly this is a work session, and we're not asking for a decision unless there's just a consensus, but Dr. Putnam explained earlier that we expect the central office move to be complete somewhere around the 19th of May. I have a May calendar pulled up, and I also have a June one that I can throw up there pretty quickly. And so I just wanted to have a brief discussion about when might be a good time for a little couple-hour open house, shake hands, invite any public that want to come, show them our new digs, new 1970 remodeled new digs. We actually think they'll be nice. They'll be a lot smaller than what we had at the old place and what we have now, but I think it will work for central administrative stuff for decades. It really should solve some problems for quite some time. So I don't know if you want to try to get it in May, or if that's too soon, if we have some kind of lag on furniture or something, or if you want to look at June, or if you just don't care and you want us to come back and suggest a date or two.
You said the final move-in date's on the 19th? That's a shoot forward, that's a shoot.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, May 19th will be the movement of large items or high-volume quantity items. We do have the two entities that I named, Teresa Cook. We're not real sure. When she gets testing wrapped up, she will move, and finance will be like June 1st and June 2nd.
My initial thought was about May the 26th, but not everybody will be down there. I was thinking about Monday nights are tough, and then, of course, Wednesday nights, a lot of folks go to church on Wednesday nights. So you could, yeah, since everybody's there. I won't argue with that.
So their anticipated days, if we could avoid that first week of, first half week of June being the first, second, and third, and move to the next week, because that's when they're anticipating moving, actually being in the process of moving, so.
Why don't we get Brooke to poll the board on like a 7th or 9th? Is that second week? Well, I'll get somebody to bring your birthday cake.
At what time are we talking about?
I think whatever we feel comfortable with, we could do, 4 to 6, 5 to 7, 6 to 8, something that's not too early or too late. Whatever's okay with you all.
Let's look at the 7th to start with. Is that good?
5 to 7.
You see how that floats with everybody else?
Most of our graduation should be over with. We have a big training day on the 6th, so I think that might be okay. Everything works.
We could even move it to the 14th if you needed to. Move it on down a little bit more.
Either or is good.
Either day's fine.
We'll hold our flags up.
Softball, baseball, Bill.
Well, if it's okay, we'll just double check conflicting things that may not be on that blank calendar.
Sure.
Like you suggested, and Brooke can poll you with a couple of dates. Maybe even poll you on the times. Would you rather have this time slot or that time slot?
That'd be great.
Great. Thank you, Brooke. Okay, the last thing is we have a summer school plan, and Jill's going to talk to you about that in broader general terms. That's a plan you usually approve. We'll ask for approval later. But just to give you an update on that, we've done right much during the summer, the last couple summers, to reduce learning loss.
Chairman Francis and members of the board, looks very different this summer just due to the fact that it was not required. The state last year required us to have a summer school. They put a lot of stipulations on that and time, and this year, nothing. Okay, so we do have a required read to achieve. Y'all have heard elementary teachers probably talk about that, and administrators. It's called an RTA camp, and we've been having that prior to COVID. Okay, and that is required for our students and to host that. And so we'll start with that. That is elementary students only, and again, something that we've been required to have for quite some time. We have 2 sites for that. That is at Hazelwood Elementary and North Canton. And basically, we have to provide 72 hours of reading instruction per the legislation. We're going to start that on June 9th and conclude on July 7th. in second and third grades are required to be invited students if they have certain scores on their reading assessments. And we do include some first graders that don't obtain some minimum scores that we would like to see too. So this is something we've done for quite some time. We do provide transportation for that camp, RTA, and we will have breakfast and lunch available for our students free of charge for that camp. So that's good for them. And we pay the drivers $20 an hour. Teachers will be paid $40 an hour. And we do get money from the state for this, for RTA. So that is something that Kim Shipman, our elementary supervisor, manages. And teachers are given bonuses, pretty good bonuses for that. If they will agree to come on board and do that, and they have met a lot of growth standards with their students in the past, then they can earn up to like a $1,200 bonus for teaching in summer school. So that's a way to recruit some of your experienced reading teachers and things like that. So also the third grade teachers, if the students make growth by the end of this camp, they get $150 for every student that makes growth. So there's some good incentives for teachers in there. We have a lot of elementary teachers that have worked this for years since it started, and we really try to keep those groups small and intentional. We've seen a lot of good success with that. So again, this will run from June 9th to July 7th. Any questions about our RTA Read to Achieve camp? Something that started during COVID that our elementary teachers, we just heard great response from our principals and teachers. And with ESSER money, when the first ESSER funds dropped, we knew we'd have several summers where we need to remediate our students. And so we, Dr. Nolte, I appreciate his foresight in that and reserving some money. So we have some money reserved for what we like to call, the state required this, and we really did like this, and it's called Jump Start. And so what we're going to do there for all elementary schools, 2 weeks, they have a 2-week window, and they can bring kids in, and the teachers can set their hours, whatever they want, whatever works best for them, and they can bring kids in at different times, just an individual way to meet their kids. They can assess kids. And we don't tell them you got to work this many days. We don't even tell them they have to do it if they can't do it. We'll have maybe a Title I teacher could step in if the regular classroom teacher can't be there. But the teachers really love that. I thought that was an awesome transition out of COVID at that time for our students. And it's something the teachers just wanted to continue. So we do have ESSER money. I don't know that we'll always be able to do this, but we're going to get to do it this summer. So those dates will be from August 1st through 12th, and the teachers will pick those 20 hours, and there's no meals or transportation there, and kids aren't required to come. And any questions just about that Jump Start, just for smooth transitions for our elementary, and that'll be K-5. It's not for teachers to work in their classrooms or things like that. We really expect them to bring kids in and be meeting their kids and forming those relationships early on and getting to know them. Any questions about elementary? Okay, middle school. They are all 3 middle schools. Their number of days, we tried to keep them tight. They had a little different, some scheduling things that they wanted to do, which is great, that fit the needs of their school. But basically, they're running about 10 days. Okay, and this is what the middle schools look like. Most of them are going to do some time right after school, June 7th through 16th. I think Bethel Middle's is June 15th through July 27th, and they're only going to run like 1 day a week, Bethel Middle, from 9 until 12, and the other ones are going to run like Monday through Thursday, but it ends up about the same amount of hours. That's just what Sean's staff chose, what worked best with their schedules. Dr. Bill, we talked about that. We wanted to keep them kind of close, okay? So they're going to run some intensive after schools out remediation for students, okay? They are also going to come back. They love that Jump Start for their 6th grade kids. And, we're really spending a lot of time in our office and in curriculum and with principals in this room Wednesday talking about our kids that are going, think about our freshmen going, our 8th graders going to 9th grade next year. Their 6th and 7th grade year, think about what those kids were going through in middle school. And if you've worked in a middle school, and a lot of us have, or you've had middle school kids, those are years where there's a lot of social change and a lot of transitions. And so, we are really talking to our principals about the importance of these transitions, and also from 5th to 6th grade. So they're going to do some middle schools are going to do something for their fifth grade going into sixth grade, and they're going to do that right before school starts too. And they look at, a lot of them are going to bring kids in and just try to assess some of the at-risk students. And they've got some different plans for that, and they hadn't ironed that out completely, but those will be in August right before school starts, several days for our middle school, so we're excited about that. Any questions about middle school? And, you know, before COVID, we really didn't have any summer opportunities for our middle school, so we're just trying to figure out how we're going to be able to maintain that, because that's been good. No transportation for middle school or meals for them, but, again, they won't be there as long, and it's not required. So high school is going to look more like credit recovery, getting our kids. We still have a lot of kids we're trying to get back on track for graduation. So that is just trying to get them their required courses and give them a chance. We use a program called Apex that they can credit recovery. The teachers set the standards. They can go through some computer-based modules, and we will have teachers on staff there to assist them and tutor them. And so all the high schools have like 11 days for credit recovery throughout the summer for our kids. Any questions about those summer school plans this year? So, and I appreciate our teachers that are willing to work and reach back out to our students. They've been troopers through all this, as y'all know, and our administrators too. So, looking forward to having some good programs.
I think it's a great plan, Ms. Barker, and speaking of teachers, I failed to mention earlier, this is Teacher Appreciation Week. Thank you to all the teachers. I think I put it on social media, but anyway, we do appreciate all of our teachers and all they do for our students. And it sounds like we've got some great opportunities for our kids to.
Yeah, and I just
Yeah.
echo that. We brag on them all the time. I know, I wish they knew just how much we we try to tell them, but they have been through a lot.
Absolutely.
And they see the faces of our kids every day that have been through a lot. And so that weighs on you too. It's not just the academic teaching, it's a lot of the emotional pieces of this too. So I just appreciate them. I know y'all do too. So thank you for that. And we'll hopefully have a great summer school plan for them.
Mr. Chairman, unless you have questions or announcements, we're finished. We do have three things that I want to update you on, 2 or 3 things in
Okay.
closed session.
All right, we'll go ahead and ask for a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Mr. Rogers made a motion, second Mr. Clark. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll go into closed session, and I will also make the announcement we will not reconvene the open session, and there will be no action taken at this meeting tonight.